What if I told you that one of the most defining wars of the late 20th century, the Gulf War, was also a turning point for women in modern warfare? We often picture tanks rolling across the desert, smart bombs striking with pinpoint accuracy, and generals commanding from high-tech command centers. But behind those images lies another story, the story of women. Pilots, nurses, engineers, intelligence officers, and even frontline troops who helped shape the outcome of Operation Desert Storm. In this video, we'll uncover the hidden role women played in the Gulf War, how they shattered stereotypes, challenged military tradition, and proved once and for all that modern war could not be fought without them. If you love immersive history and want to learn about the untold stories behind famous wars, make sure to like, comment, and subscribe so you don't miss our deep dives into history's hidden chapters. Setting the stage, the Gulf War in context. The Gulf War erupted in August 1990 when Saddam Hussein's Iraq invaded Kuwait. The world reacted swiftly. A U.S.-led coalition of 35 nations, under the banner of the United Nations, prepared to liberate Kuwait. Operation Desert Shield, the build-up phase, saw nearly 700,000 American troops deployed to the Middle East, alongside hundreds of thousands of Allied soldiers. But this wasn't just another conventional Cold War standoff. It was the first war broadcast live on CNN, the first truly global war of the television age. And among those troops, nearly 40,000 were women, the largest deployment of American military women in history up to that point. Never before had women served in such numbers, in such proximity to the front lines, and in roles that were once considered the exclusive domain of men. This was a war of many firsts. The first time women flew combat missions in and around an active war zone. The first time women commanded mixed-gender units under fire. The first time the public truly saw female soldiers not as auxiliaries, but as essential warfighters. The Gulf War became a proving ground for women in uniform, a stage where they demonstrated their skill, resilience, and indispensability, breaking barriers, women on the front lines. For decades, U.S. military policy had restricted women from serving in direct combat roles. They could fly planes, but not in combat. They could serve on ships, but not in direct combat zones. They could lead units, but not in situations where fighting was inevitable. The Gulf War blurred these lines. The desert was vast, the front lines fluid, and the distinction between combat and support often disappeared. Example: women pilots. Captain Linda Bray became one of the first women to command American troops in battle when her military police company faced Iraqi forces during Operation Desert Storm. Female helicopter pilots transported troops, evacuated casualties, and flew dangerous resupply missions under threat of enemy fire. Example: women in engineering and logistics. Women operated heavy equipment, built airstrips, and repaired tanks. Without their work, the massive coalition buildup in the Saudi desert would have stalled. Example: women in intelligence. Female intelligence analysts and linguists monitored Iraqi communications, helped plan bombing campaigns, and deciphered battlefield movements. The war didn't just put women near combat, it forced military leadership to admit that women were, in many ways, already fighting. The humanitarian and medical role. Another crucial aspect of women's service came in the medical and humanitarian field. Thousands of female nurses, doctors, and medics were deployed to field hospitals across Saudi Arabia and closer to Kuwait. They treated burns, shrapnel wounds, and combat fatigue. The speed at which these hospitals were constructed and the efficiency of their operations was due in no small part to the leadership and expertise of women. One striking example: Army nurses operated mobile surgical hospitals just 30 miles from the Kuwaiti border. They worked around the clock, often under threat of Scud missile attacks, performing life-saving surgeries. But women didn't just treat coalition soldiers, they also cared for civilians. As Kurdish refugees fled Saddam Hussein's reprisals in northern Iraq, female medics were among the first to provide aid, vaccinations, and food. These roles highlighted a key reality. Modern war isn't only about tanks and planes. It's about logistics, care, and the ability to sustain life amid destruction. Women were indispensable to that mission.
Media visibility, women on the global stage. Unlike previous wars, the Gulf War played out live on television. Reporters followed units into the desert, showing the world not only Patriot missile interceptions, but also female soldiers running checkpoints, flying helicopters, and leading troops. This visibility mattered. For the first time, the American public and the wider world saw women as integral to the war effort. CNN footage showed female MPs managing prisoners of war. News outlets ran stories of female pilots navigating dangerous skies. Interviews featured women reflecting on the challenges of serving so far from home while under threat of chemical attack. The media coverage became part of the cultural shift, pushing the conversation beyond "should women serve" to "how can the military better integrate them?" Challenges, criticisms, and gender barriers. Of course, the Gulf War wasn't a smooth ride for women in uniform. Institutional barriers. Women were still officially banned from direct combat, creating contradictions when they came under fire. Some male commanders resisted assigning women to leadership roles, doubting their abilities. Cultural and social barriers. Saudi Arabia's strict laws about gender created unique tensions. Women soldiers were operating in a country where local women couldn't drive or work freely. This highlighted contradictions between coalition values and host nation customs. Sexual harassment and discrimination. Reports emerged of harassment, unequal treatment, and the difficulty of proving oneself in a male-dominated environment. And yet, women persevered. By doing their jobs under pressure, they shifted the conversation. The Gulf War became less about whether women could serve and more about acknowledging the fact that they already had. International perspectives. It wasn't just American women. British, Canadian, and French female soldiers also served in the Gulf. British women filled roles in field hospitals and intelligence units. Canadian women, newly integrated into more military roles, proved their worth in logistics and medical fields. French women worked as translators, medical officers, and support staff for the coalition forces. The Gulf War was a collective effort, and across nations, women were central to success. Legacy: what changed after the Gulf War? The Gulf War ended quickly, just 43 days of combat, but its impact on women in the military lasted decades. Policy changes. In 1993, just 2 years after the war, the U.S. Congress lifted restrictions on women flying combat aircraft. By the mid-1990s, women began serving on combat ships. The Gulf War became a critical milestone in the long road toward women's full integration in combat roles, which wasn't fully achieved until 2016. Cultural shifts. The war changed public perception. Polls showed rising support for women in the military, particularly after their service in the Gulf was highlighted on television. Inspirational legacy. Thousands of young women who watched Desert Storm on TV were inspired to enlist, knowing that the path had been opened by those who served before them. The Gulf War may have been short, but its echoes reshaped the role of women in modern armies. The Gulf War is often remembered for its smart bombs and its rapid victory, but perhaps its most enduring legacy is the way it transformed the role of women in the military. From pilots to medics, from engineers to intelligence officers, women proved that they were not just auxiliaries. They were warfighters, leaders, and lifesavers. Their courage helped break barriers, change policies, and inspire a new generation. If you enjoyed this deep dive into history's overlooked chapters, make sure to like this video, leave a comment with your thoughts, and subscribe to our channel for more immersive history content. Because history isn't just about what happened, it's about the stories we choose to remember.